everybody, welcome back to the DFS Dose YouTube channel. I'm Ben Hauver, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top DFS cash game plays for Draftkings in Week 5. If you like what you see in today's video, man, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow more than you know. We're approaching that 300 sub benchmark, and it would mean a lot if you helped us get there. And if you ever want to connect with us here at the DFS Dose, you can do so easily. We have 2 podcasts that drop per week on all platforms. Link to find those are in the description below, as well as the link to our free Discord chat. And we have a live stream Q&A on Saturdays to catch you up on all the late week news for the DFS slate and take your questions and give some good answers. Now, let's stop beating around the bush and get into the top cash game plays at each position for Draftkings cash games. I do want to preface this video by saying that I am recording a day earlier than usual. I usually wait until the Friday practice reports come out, but just because of my personal life and my schedule this week, I'm not going to be able to get to it tomorrow to film, so we're doing it on Thursday. All the more reason if you guys have any questions. I think that the slate specifically is going to have a lot of late news, so check back on Saturday night. We go live on this YouTube channel around 11:30 p.m. Eastern to recap all of the news, and the recording for that will be up on Sunday mornings as well, so make sure you tune in for that. Starting off at the quarterback position, a lot of what we're going to be doing this week I think is going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo's availability, because Trey Lance at 5,700 is an absolute standout play. We saw it in a half of action last week when Jimmy G went down. Lance had 7 attempts for 41 yards and only one half, put up 2 touchdowns passing. He looked decent, he looked like a rookie, but because of his rushing floor at 5,700 at that price point, I think you just have to jam that in cash games if he's available. So we'll have to wait and see on that. If he's not available and Jimmy G does get the start, I think Daniel Jones is viable. Jones has been surprisingly consistent this year. He's also had 6.75 rush attempts per game, no less than 27 yards on the ground rushing, and a high of 95 rushing yards in a single game. So Daniel Jones has sort of a boosted floor for his rushing that people don't sort of realize, and I think that that elevates him. It's a good game environment going up against Dallas, and that's sort of like the theme of this week. The game environments this week are just not that strong. No Baltimore, no Kansas City, no Buffalo, no Seattle, no Rams. Like, a lot of the top offenses are going to be gone. So we're just going to be trying to jam in consistent, reliable points where we can. And at the quarterback position, we want to save salary because, the ceilings from those top guys that can really separate from the field are just not going to be available outside of Kyler Murray. Murray is an absolutely amazing play. He is 8K, so it's sort of hard to fit him in. Murray is absolutely in play. He's playing at an MVP level. He has the best floor-ceiling combo of any quarterback on this slate, potentially any player in the NFL right now for fantasy football purposes. I would never fault anybody for going up to Kyler Murray. It's just the way that I'm looking at roster construction this week, as we'll get to in a minute. Derrick Henry, I think, is a must-play, and when we get to wide receiver, Devontae Adams, to me, is a must-play, so it's going to be really hard to play 3 of the top price players at their positions. I think you go down at quarterback and you prioritize running back and wide receiver. Speaking of running back, Derrick Henry, the big dog, 9K, averaging 32 touches per game, is an absolute smash this week. The Titans being favored by only 4 points is a complete oversight, in my opinion, by Vegas. I talked about it on the podcast. I'm definitely betting the Titans side this week. The Jaguars are just like, right on the precipice of collapse right now with this whole Urban Meyer situation. I mean, they could be firing their first-year coach by the end of this week if things continue to spiral. And Derrick Henry, just from a football perspective, has owned the Jags, and his workload is incredible. He has a higher pass game role than he's ever had in his career. And I mean, let's keep it real. Like, if you're grinding DFS, if you're watching YouTube videos on DFS, you don't even need me to tell you to play Derrick Henry. But this week specifically, because of the lack of consistent points and so many of the best players in the NFL are off the slate, it just makes Henry and Cook and CMC and Adams like that much more important, because you just jam those reliable points into your lineup and let other people make mistakes. Speaking of those other 2 top tier players I mentioned, McCaffrey and Cook, they would both be absolute smashes in this play if we could guarantee their health and their workloads. Dalvin Cook is reportedly going to play this week. He did miss practice on Wednesday. He's going to play through the ankle injury, but like we saw last week, he tried to play through it. He got some work. He looked good on the first drive. Like, I thought that the contrarian Dalvin Cook tournament play was going to be absolutely sailing us to the money, but that was not the case. Cook barely played in the second half, and I think that that is, again, a concern, although this spot is so good. The Lions are so beat up. Their defense is ass to begin with. Like, Dalvin Cook, fully healthy at 8,400, would be my top play on the slate if we could guarantee a full workload. This is going to be a situation to monitor, as is the Christian McCaffrey situation. McCaffrey's status, I think, is a little bit more in jeopardy. Like, he is back to practice, so that is a good sign early in the week. I think he plays, and McCaffrey typically isn't limited when he plays. So I would actually feel more confident, I think, in going to Christian McCaffrey over Dalvin Cook, but I'm still really thinking through this, and we'll just sort of have to see, as news develops throughout the week. Again, I'll be talking about this with Joey on the Saturday night live stream if you want to tune in, but all of these guys are just super solid plays. Saquon Barkley to me stands out in the mid-range, and it just looks like he's back, right? So if Saquon Barkley is truly back at 7,300, then you're getting a great value. Barkley's been on between 84 and 89% of snaps in each of the last 3 games. He's been averaging 6.5 targets per game over the last 2. So because of his role in the passing game and the fact that he's not splitting snaps, I think he is a slightly better play than Ezekiel Elliott at 7K. Although it's close, Elliott is a home favorite, one of the highest implied team totals on the slate. So like Barkley 7.3, Zeke 7 even. It's a really tough call, but just because of the pass game usage and the fact that, Zeke is going to be ceding roughly 25 to 35% of snaps to Tony Pollard, and Barkley, however, is just going to be like dominating the snaps. I think Barkley would be the lean in cash games. However, from a roster construction standpoint, I just don't see this range being that viable. I think in cash games, you're jamming in Henry and then you're playing either one of CMC and Cook, or you're going down to the mid 5Ks and you're playing Damian Williams and Leonard Fournette. Damian Williams is a good play this week. David Montgomery is going to miss the next 4 to 5 weeks, so D-Will should just sort of slide in and sort of take that same role. The only other back they've got on the roster is Khalil Herbert, and I think that Herbert eats less into Damian Williams' work than Damian Williams eats into David Montgomery's, because D-Will's a legitimate player. Khalil Herbert is a complete unknown, and like I said, man, Williams has the pass-catching chop, so at 5,600, I think you're getting a good, solid floor out of him, and he could have a good ceiling as well. So I like Damian Williams at 5,600, and Leonard Fournette at 5,200 is projecting as one of the top plays on the slate. It's strange to say in the year 2021 that we're going to jam in Leonard Fournette as a cash game lock, but I think we do. He's completely overtaken Ronald Jones at this point as the top back in the Bucs backfield. He's top 10 in the NFL in running back targets, receptions, and routes run. Coming off of a 23-touch performance, Miami's defense is one of the worst in the NFL, especially when it comes to stopping the run. As far as I'm concerned this week, Henry and Fournette are stone cold locks at the running back position. I don't usually talk about my fades in these videos, but just because so many people seem interested in Samaje Perine, I will say, don't play Samaje Perine. I know that he's 4K and he's going to sort of be stepping into a bigger role, obviously with Joe Mixon expected to miss this game. But the Bengals have already hinted at using Chris Evans, their rookie 6th round back, as a pass catcher. And if Samaje Perine is A, not good, which is true, B, not going to be catching passes, we're just looking at wasting a running back spot on a guy who's probably going to get, 12 to 16 touches, maybe 1 or 2 catches, and has a low ceiling as a touchdown scorer. If Samaje Perine is chalk, man, this is going to be a good week for us. Moving on to wide receiver, I'll be honest, I think the position is pretty ugly this week. Davante Adams at 8,200 should be a priority play. He is tied for the second most targets of any wide receiver in the league. He's top 6 in red zone targets in the NFL and has only 1 touchdown. We know Adams is one of the best touchdown scorers in the NFL. I'm definitely expecting some positive regression to hit him this week. And because of just like the general lack of quality of the wide receiver position, it's going to be a slate where I think I've said it a couple times, but you just take the guaranteed points in Davante Adams. He's got an incredible target share, an incredible floor ceiling combination, and you can fit him in because there are some good punt options. Like I mentioned at running back, you can go down and play 2 mid 5K running backs, feel good about them, and then find some other value at wide receiver. 2 of the guys that I think really stand out are the Jags wide receivers. The Titans defense has been struggling heavily to stop the pass right now. They've given up the most deep pass completions, the most deep passing yards, and the most deep passing touchdowns, which in this spot I think really favors Marvin Jones at 5,700, but Laviska Shenault is a good salary saver. 4,800, I feel comfortable playing him. The Jags OC Bevel has sort of spoken about getting Laviska more involved, and I don't think that they have a choice not to. With DJ Chark out, DJ Chark was operating as the wide receiver 2 in this offense, and I think that, the targets are really going to get spread more evenly between these two guys. Like, yeah, maybe Dan Arnold or O'Shaughnessy or whatever, like they take a little bit, but those are the guys to target is Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault, and it's just perfect because more target share and the Titans' weakness correlates well. I feel really good about playing both Jags wide receivers. Just from a roster construction standpoint, I think Viska fits a little bit better. Also got both Washington players listed this week. Logan Thomas is set to miss a few weeks, and we saw Terry McLaurin just dominate last week. He's one of the most consistent wide receivers in the league at 7,400. If you can fit him, I would. It might be hard to fit 2 wide receivers. Adams would definitely be the priority between the two, but Curtis Samuel is completely unknown at this point. Like if Samuel misses, McLaurin's target share is going to be absolutely massive in this spot. If Samuel plays, I would feel comfortable going back to him. He was targeted heavily for only playing 37% of snaps. If that goes up, we'll be sitting really pretty with a min-price Curtis Samuel. However, it's really hard to just sort of trust him that he's going to be getting his full allotment of snaps. As of right now, when I'm recording Wednesday, he missed practice, and Thursday, he started off practice on the side. I don't know if he's going to be getting in a limited session. Hopefully he does, and if he's back on Friday, then I think Curtis Samuel is sort of like the key to the slate, because we need to be finding salary. Wide receiver 3, I think, is the spot to do it. And if we're going to be able to play the best build possible, we're going to be needing to find a wide receiver in this cheap, punt-off sort of price range. So, again, I hate to just keep bringing it back to the plugs, but check out the Saturday night live stream. We'll have more info on Curtis Samuel. And if he's out, we'll have a good idea of the other sort of wide receivers that we can target in that spot to find salary relief. Before I move on to tight end, do have to shout out Keenan Allen, who is just wildly underpriced for his role, 6,500, averaging 11 targets per game. Yeah, Mike Williams is sort of, clawing at him to become the wide receiver 1 in that Chargers offense, but at this point, I still think it's Keenan, and I mean, God, the dude is literally going to get 10, 11, 12 targets every single week, and at 6,500, his floor is just so high. We are prioritizing a higher floor than a higher ceiling in cash games for the most weeks, but especially this week, just because like I've talked about, the lack of ceiling in general on the slate is going to come into play. So guaranteeing floor is a really important factor when building your cash games this week, and Keenan Allen is like the definition of a high floor. Last and definitely least is the tight end position. I listed a couple of my favorite plays here. Mike Gesicki at 4,200, Jonnu Smith 3,300, Evan Ingram 3,200, and there's some other guys in this range that I think are just, equally as viable. Max Williams at 34, Dan Arnold. To be honest, like I talked about it on the podcast with Joey, like these tight ends are completely interchangeable for me. The name that you choose is not going to make a huge difference. Like they're all projecting very close to each other. I think Evan Ingram is my favorite, and we're still waiting on, the statuses of, Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. So we'll see on that. I like Ingram. His snaps have been going up since he's come back healthy. It was like 58, I think, and then in the 60s last week. We could see him cap around 70, 80 this week, which would be great. At 3,200, he had 6 targets in both of his games so far this year. So Evan Ingram at 3,200 is my favorite. I like Jonnu too, just sort of based off matchup. And Gesicki, if you could afford it, would be fine because he's basically a wide receiver. I think he's played all but like 9 of his snaps out wide. He's like barely lining up in line. So like Gesicki going against the terrible Bucs secondary is very appealing. It's just not the wave in cash games this week to pay up. And like 4,200 isn't paying up, but we just need to save salary this week, so we're able to jam in Henry, Adams, and another high-priced option. I could honestly care less which tight end we play in Draftkings. It'll probably be Evan Ingram, but if you want to move it around and play someone else, totally punt it off with Ricky Seals-Jones with Logan Thomas out, like that's fine too. Tight end, don't care about the name, just care about the salary savings this week. Like none of these players are really stand out. I don't know, man, maybe I'm totally wilding with that. Like if you guys have a strong tight end play that you think stands above the rest in that lower tiered price range, just drop the comment below. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts and, just sort of your thoughts on the week. Do you guys like stars and scrubs weeks, or do you like prefer when it's sort of a balanced build and you feel more confident, you're not taking gambles in cash games? Let me know in the comments below. Interested to know how you guys feel about that. And that's going to be it for this week's video. I do appreciate you watching. If you liked what you saw, like a video, subscribe to the channel, and we will be back on Saturday night for the live stream Q&A. It's an important week, a lot of late news coming, so make sure you check it out. And we'll be back with the Week 6 edition of this video next Friday. Talk to you guys then.